Okay. I know you either clicked in this video in anger, or confusion, or agreement. Red Dead Redemption 2 is overrated. You know what? Fuck it. I will make points about everything though in the game, and bad in the game. Starting off with the good things. The game is pretty. You hear it all the time. Yes, Red Dead is a very realistic looking game. I wouldn't say it's the most realistic looking, but small details like your pupils dilating and horse balls kinda help with the immersion, but I will tell you later why that's kinda cheeks. 2. Story is good. I personally am a fan of the Red Dead story. It's perfectly laid out. Character development is amazing, and it doesn't do that bullshit move where a sick dude annihilates a younger, stronger, and healthy dude. I won't spoil the game. If you are a story-focused guy and want to play it, go ahead. But let me now warn you of literally every nitpick and bad thing about the game. First bad thing, traversal sucks ass. I cannot tell you how tedious and slow riding a horse in an open field for 5 minutes is. At least in GTA it takes your attention to try not crash. But in Red Dead, the most you have to worry about is where you can let your horse take a shit and not get a fine for not picking it up. I would honestly rather slam my ball sack in a metal door than ride my horse halfway across the map. Right, okay, realism. As you have probably noticed by the 2-minute in the background of my reloading my guns, there's a point where you can have realism in a game and it still be fun, and realism to the point it's annoying. Yeah, cleaning your guns are a cool feature, but Jesus fucking Christ. The game adds certain things of realism like changing your clothes to adjust to the weather and eating to not look skinny and sleeping so you aren't fatigued. But these things are minor inconveniences. You don't need to actually change your clothes. I've gone through blizzard conditions in just pants and came out perfectly fine. Eating is optional and will only make you look different. And the fatigue you get when you don't sleep is so barely noticeable that you wouldn't even know it's in the game. Especially since Rockstar doesn't tell you these things. But in the long run, it doesn't matter. Oh boy, this one I might get some heat for. But these takes just keep getting hotter. And honestly, I don't really fucking care about the Red Dead fanboys with Arthur Morgan profile pictures yelling at me. Free roam is absolute dog shit. There's nothing to do. Sure, you can go around and do little side quests, but they are all the same. You can insult NPCs, but at some point it gets boring. In fact, probably the funnest thing in free roam I've done is torture an NPC. Burn the body and throw it off a cliff or into a river. It sounds sadistic, but the gore physics are pretty good, so you know, it is what it is. But honestly, doing little free roam things like an NPC telling you about something you can rob or stopping a train are pretty boring, since you've probably done it before. And if you do it. It's restrictive as fuck and only gives you $50. And on the topic of restrictive missions, for fuck's sake, Rockstar's format has not changed for a single game for 20 years. Go here and blank, follow blank, kill blank. The list goes on. Every game, every mission, the game gives you no creativity. You go here and do this, or else. Don't attempt to do anything remotely different because it will result in a fail. The freedom you actually get is either insanely easy, or so short, it barely feels like the game gave you an option. Oh, and I won't forget, in GTA and Red Dead, the game gives you options, but ultimately it doesn't matter what you pick. Sure, a new cutscene or difficulty might change, but altogether, whichever you picked, won't matter since you will always have the same outcome. In other games like Detroit Become Human, which may I remind you had less development time than Red Dead, has options that affect the game. Like if you make an OnlyFans account, Connor can track you. And if you don't, he won't find you, and the story would be different dependent on what you picked. And yes, I know the honor level changes things, but again, long term it's the same outcome with different dialogue or different hallucinations in a few missions. The same thing would happen regardless if your Arthur paid the church to enter heaven or not. Honestly, I don't see why people bother spending time to get their Arthur a high honor level. It's really long and boring, and honestly, you could just search up what that cutscene would be like as a good boy or not. It's just not worth it. And the last bad thing about Red Dead, drum roll please.
You what?
Okay, let me say one thing that will justify this before I get to the reasoning. Why do you think I made the video in the first place? Whenever you interact with a Red Dead fan, they always say,
"Hey WW, yeah mate, it's got the best graphics and story in all of gaming history."
But do they actually have any other reasoning? Sure, you might think that's enough. But there's more to a game than graphics and story. What about the gameplay? Nobody ever talks about that. I've played the game and personally, I think it could use a little refine. And what about the story? It's mostly just story as the reason, but what makes a good story? The characters, or the good feeling you get after the bonding and connection with the characters you spent 50 hours with, watched grow and get a happy ending. And do you want to know what's funny about what I just said? I was thinking about God of War 2018 whilst writing that. Oh, and I already know what Red Dead players think about God of War.
Oh yeah, mate. God of War didn't deserve Game of the Year on 2018. Red Dead 2 definitely did.
But when people say that, they forget the fact Red Dead won most awards in gaming 2018. 2018 second's best character of that year was Arthur Morgan. But no, Red Dead fans want the quote-unquote best game ever to win. But honestly, it really isn't that good. And honestly, I wouldn't mind Red Dead if it wasn't for the NPCs overhyping it. In conclusion, the experience I received was not worth the £50. And I won't even touch online since, well, it speaks for itself.